This one came out 3 days ago. This one is from Space Tomato, and it's right up my alley. Axperior asks, I'm new to Star Citizen. Is it any good? If you have to ask that, you're probably looking for an actual video game. The answer is probably no for you, but you're in luck. You could try the game for free on what, the 7th? Wait, what day does it start? Does the event start? 17th. I knew there was a 7. The 17th of May. So just hang out and find out for yourself. Anyway, the Star Citizen's economy is changing in 3.23, but without the quantum simulation. By how much? I wonder how far ahead is he looking? Like, is he talking about cargo or what? So I'm curious about this video. Economy is the most important thing to the game for me.
Star Citizen's,
but it doesn't have to be little dots flying all over the place simulating it. It can be an economy between us.
Economy has never made much sense. Buying and selling commodities was mostly static and boring. Locations didn't reflect what and why they sold products, and you could fly all the way across the system for a mission and not even get paid enough for gas.
I don't think that's ever happened because gas costs like nothing. Oh yeah, my cam's off because I was showing you guys something else. Anyway, I don't think, I'm curious what you guys think. I don't think static equals boring necessarily, but nonsensical did, and no risk was also boring, and nothing to do with the money is also boring, right? So I think what made it, I don't think he's saying that static equals boring, but I'm just curious if people feel that way. I think he said it is static and boring. So it can mean and or what, but I'm just curious what other people think about. There are plenty of space games that have a static cargo commodity economy like this. Every freelancer, every privateer game, Rebel Galaxy Outlaw, and others have very static economies in that way, and they were all fun. So
for a long time, we've looked to the quantum simulation to finally start making sense of everything. But with 3.23, the real shift in the game's economic state begins with quantum nowhere in sight. These economic changes are focused on...
I think Tomato just has a really big hard-on for quantum. Because I think that they've been pretty clear about there's no point of using quantum or whatever without having an economy in the game that makes sense, and then we can have something simulated. The quantum simulation is the simulation of an economy that makes sense, an economy that's already fun. We don't need little dots moving around if it's not fun without them. Right? Period. We don't need a dynamic economy if we don't need it. It doesn't do anything for the game if it's not fun on its own. And what they're doing right now is trying to make it make sense and be fun on its own. Whether they achieve that goal or not remains to be seen.
The pricing of ships based on various characteristics of each ship. But as the year continues, this update promises changes to mission payouts, loot potential, commodity prices, player progression, and more. They will lay the groundwork for Star Citizen's economic simulation.
Yes.
But the truly dynamic simulation is still in the dark. And just in 2021, we were told by Tony Z, the creator of Quantum, that things would start moving that very year. We all know...
Imagine that. Imagine believing anything that comes
out
of his mouth.
The delays in Star Citizen are normal, but what happened here? Should we expect a more interesting economic backdrop to Star Citizen starting with Alpha 3.23? And where the heck is Tony Z and the quantum simulation? Thank you for coming to my Tomato Talk.
He has to cover the post that they made about this, I assume, but we'll see.
In Star Citizen 323, a multitude of economic updates that began in earnest early last year will begin to be implemented into the game. While there have always been small tweaks here and there, it wasn't until August of 2023 that the economy team was fully broken out from Systemic Services and Tools, who handles a lot of other initiatives around the game. This new team is more focused on the economy and has been since working on various elements of it like commodity payouts, ammo pricing, global event leveling like in Xenothreat, armor and weapon prices, balancing the various career paths, shop item pricing structures based on where shops are, and what factions they're aligned with.
Most of which I don't think we're seeing in 323.
Vehicle prices, ship prices, and all the other prices in the game. One of the more interesting things they've been developing, as per a recent monthly report, are the designation of sources, transformers, and sinks of resources.
Yeah.
These would be your mines, refineries, and factories. These are just a part of the economic chain that begins with an explorer finding resources, progressing through all the stages of those resources being harvested and developed, and finding an end space in a shop being picked up, used, and found as loot, or in somebody's base.
I really hope I don't see a world like there. I just want people to realize that traditional MMO crafting was never intended in this game from the beginning. And I fought people on this so hard. I just did not see a way that you have an MMO without it. And people were like, well, that's what Chris said. And I believe everything Chris says and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, whatever you say. And now we're getting traditional crafting, of course, because how do you not have it in the game? The next thing that I cannot see a world that we don't like a game world without is a player-to-player marketplace. I just cannot see a world without it.
This is all part of the complex economy.
So the idea, like, just I'm pointing that out because Tomato made it sound like the end of the loop was selling it to an NPC shop. How boring is that? How boring is that? It meant that there was no demand for it in the first place, right? When there's actual player demand for something, that's when it means something, to me at least.
That was laid out in 2019's initial presentation of the quantum simulation, and the best sign of a dynamic economy we've seen yet. This one line, along with the economic changes being implemented over the next few updates, points to a true evolving economy driving Star Citizen. It likely won't be this year, but once server meshing is in a matured state on the live servers with multiple systems and higher player counts, we'll likely see a rollout of a dynamic economy that's partially driven by the players. But this all starts with Alpha 323, and it's much less grand at step 1.
Yes.
For this first step, we'll be seeing ship prices adjusted to match their place in the verse. These changes and where each ship lands are based on a few different things that the team specifically chose because they knew they were mostly set in stone. Rather than DPS, thrust output, or shield strength, the prices are more based on things like the manufacturer, who may use different specific design practices, materials, or components, or ship roles, in which combat is more specialized in ship design and necessity, translating to combat ships demanding a higher premium. Not to mention the cost of ammunition will go up as well. Now, I'm not going to go over all the price changes we're seeing here, but
and all of that stuff can change so many times over as the actual materials are added and the actual value of those materials. Like these prices, there's a 0% chance they're set in stone, but they're probably not going down.
I can say that they are not all upwards. The medical Pisces specifically has dropped in price, possibly reflecting a new emphasis on testing medical gameplay or on wanting to get more people involved in taking medical beacons.
No, I think it's because it was overpriced. It was like 1 million credits or something, right?
While most of the changes are increases and they will hurt for now, just remember upcoming changes in later patches will also be boosting mission payouts and loot values. Until then, you can always
ship.
join my org down below, GII, to make sure you got a good group of people that can back you up when you're in need. Besides that, these won't be the only changes to ship prices we're seeing. Eventually, pricing will also include the cost of material and armor, which will depend on the local economy, access to resources, and who makes the ship itself. This ever-changing network of costs and supply points that are meant to have a profound effect on where in the game you...
This dude, he left a long time ago, and I don't know when it was, but he was on this panel, and I think we maybe saw him one more time after that, and then never again.
...call home, and where you do business, is what we currently know as quantum.
Quantum.
It's quantum.
Quantum, the overarching back-end simulation of the game that was first presented to us by its creator, Tony Zurovic, in 2019. And then we heard from him again in early 2021. And then again in mid-2021. And then again at CitizenCon 2021. But after that, virtually nothing. Just a couple of updates about what could be going on with the system in testing in the 3.17 branch.
It's quantum that goes through and basically says, okay, hey, in this area we're going to spawn this many, and then of varying skill levels or varying threat levels, and then from there it basically the servers pick them up, and so but it is quanta in the background saying spawn here, spawn there.
Let's take a look at where this system is, when we might get it, and where the heck is Tony Z?
I mean, do we even need it? Right? I think a lot of people want. I am of the ilk that we do, but I'm curious if people think we even need it.
The quantum simulation, which is quantum, not quanta, is the background simulation of the Star Citizen universe. It handles supply and demand, the flow of resources between nodes, the population of security, industrial, and pirate AI, their proficiencies and dislikes, the virtual AI service that powers unique NPCs, and much, much more of the economy. I've covered it a few times in detail on this channel and on Space Tomato 2, which should give you a good idea of how the economy is meant to work. You'll find those below. But the system's been talked about quite a bit between the years of 2019 to 2021. Now, you know there was some big things happening around that time. These were definitely years of a lot of struggle and changing expectations as, besides external factors, both Squadron 42 and server meshing tech took the bulk of development priority. It did seem quantum was being integrated into the game in some ways. At that time, we were told by Tony Z that later in the year the updates would begin.
Later in the year, the updates would begin, but most of the conversations from this man at the times of the panels that he is showing, do you remember what most of the conversations were, guys? They had nothing to do with the economy, nothing to do with the probability volumes, nothing to do with any simulation at all. All they talked about was dynamic events that have never been dynamic. Jumptown, Ninetales Lockdown, Siege of Orison. That is all they talked about. That was the bulk. And that was the problem.
We're now in early stage testing to allow Quantum to start pushing the first few bits of simulated data out the door and start impacting the game. And we expect to go live with these efforts later this year.
They did go live with the efforts, actually. I played a build with that in there. And it still might be, it probably isn't anymore, but I played a PTU build, it might have been an Evo build, with that in there. It was fuel and repair. And the fuel prices were so low, that it didn't matter. So I went and bought fuel from one station for like 1 million credits and sold it to another, and it didn't really like do anything, or I couldn't sell it to another station. It was some weird thing, but like I bought a bunch and we tried to see if the price went up a little bit because I bought all the fuel from the station, and it's just like nothing happened. And then I think they made a comment of like, oh yeah, we're just gathering data. And you know what they did with that data? fucking made dynamic events.
Also told the system was matured and ready to start integrating with game services. Almost a year later, we were informed by Todd Pappy that the 3.17 testing of the system would begin in a few locations with updates coming quarterly afterward.
So I talked to Tony about it today. So they're still planning on quantum in 3.17 to dictate the price of 3 commodities: repair, materials, quantum fuel, and hydrogen fuel.
And it did.
And where service beacons occur, and the price, and then 3 probability volume tags: piracy, security, and freighters, at about a dozen locations. So like that's the way that the first iteration of Quanta
they literally worked.
Be put in, and then from there again.
But then they never did anything with it
and adjust it and then go from there.
And in the lead up to 3.17, Todd explained a bit more of how the system was working in-game in the clip you guys saw right before this chat.
It did. Like, guys, I played it. I saw it. This isn't me just believing what they're saying. I literally played it and saw it happen. It just wasn't interesting or fun.
Chapter started. That is the last time I can recall us hearing about the system publicly. While many players will tell you that they did not notice this system at play, this is where the messaging stands. Since those 3 commodities were being affected at a limited amount of locations, weren't even tradable on the market, it was likely not for the player's experience that these tests were being run. I can say that service beacons did change during that time, and have since been more predictable at spawning and more fun to do, so they may be driven by the quantum system. But it's safe to say at this point that they haven't moved forward in a major way with this simulation, like with most things in Star Citizen, because they have prerequisites to complete. Luckily, we know what those
the prerequisite is the fucking economy.
Prerequisites are. In October, right after CitizenCon, Spectrum user Zonat made a post about the quantum economy. A member of the economy team responded by saying, "The Quanta simulation is in a good place at the moment, but has paused development to focus on the aspects that'll drive it, like the gameplay, economy, and server meshing." They also mentioned that more concrete information will be shared later. What this means is that while the simulation could run right now, as we've discussed today, the current economy doesn't even have a baseline to feed off of. Ship prices, armor prices, mission payouts, even ammo costs just don't make sense. In addition,
and if you think, I'm sure he's getting here, if you start thinking about what they want to do with the game, base building, crafting, they're talking about crafting ships. They mentioned crafting stations, I believe, like crazy stuff. Oh, no, did they mention stations at CitizenCon? They definitely mentioned ships. But there's no economy of material. There's no material economy either. They don't even have to have a price. It's like the recipe costs and things like that. There's so many. They alluded to it. Okay, cool. Yeah, I couldn't remember if I was just coping on something or if they actually said it. But yeah, they don't have a game that makes sense. So this idea that the quantum simulation is going to solve anything is the dumbest thing to think right now. The only thing it will solve, and the only thing it should solve, is allowing the player-run economy to get out of control. And I know that there's going to be way more simulated little bits flying around than us, but it has to be fun for us. And then it has to make sure that it stays fun for us. That's the point of the simulated economy that I was drawn to, is that it never got out of control like other player-run economies can at times. So that was my draw to the system. But I don't want the system if I don't have an economy that makes sense between myself and the other people who are playing the game. I don't want to just be playing alone in a world where the AI are running everything and I'm just a passerby. I don't necessarily want to be the hero of Stanton or the Star Citizen universe when I'm playing, like some MMOs make you feel, but I think it needs to be fun between us. And the economic booms and struggles have to start and end with us. and everything else is just maintaining it. But yeah.
Without most of the game's professions in a basic working state, especially including cargo hauling and trade, there's again not much of a baseline to set for the sim. Finally, server meshing will allow for way more players, way more entities, virtual AI and NPC spawning based on populations. There may not...
And that's not something to breeze over. We have never played Star Citizen as an MMO. Ever. We've never played it as a medium multiplayer online game, right? Like, it's just been a private server with your buddies, essentially, in a lot of ways. So, yeah, a lot of people point out X4 when I make my comments around the economy. So it's a weird situation where if you look at every experience that you have in the game now, based on the testing that they've done with server meshing, up to 800 players, was not a successful test, by the way. But if it ever is a successful test, 8 times, 10 times, 20 times the players than we experience now in a given shard, which is a collection of servers. The way the game is built now, the foundation will crumble. There's not enough locations. There's not enough commodities to go around. There's not enough there yet. So everything that we know today is going to change. There's no doubt about it. If those server meshing tests are successful, they cannot scale the current game experience to the amount of players that we want. So it's just a fact. There's no way around it. So why have a simulation until we know what we're going to be doing, right?
Be a point in gearing the sim for a system that doesn't include that when we are so actively moving towards a server-meshed game environment anyways, possibly doubling the work. What this also means is that CIG needs to get their naming conventions in line.
Quantum is a simulation of the game universe.
The people who are obsessed with this name that is definitely going to, especially if Tony Z's not around anymore, they're changing that name. 100%.
But from what I'm hearing, this is another case of work being done, but waiting for other bits to catch up. While I'm sure the quantum simulation will take many updates and tweaks to reach the goals set out in 2019 and 2021, the initial version they're going to give us is likely not far off now. Many of these components needed for this sim, the cargo hauling space, base building adding to the economy, multiple star systems, a reliable economic balance, a robust choice of items, weapons, and armors,
not that far away,
and most
guys.
importantly, server meshing. Many of these components are finding their way into the game this very year, and that could mean the simulation
in relation to the last 12 years, it's probably not that far away. That's true.
Itself is not far behind. And as tends to be the case, CIG actually released a bit of new info on this a day before this video was scheduled to publish. This update actually comes from the mission design team though. It basically tells us that the new cargo updates of the 323 update branch are bringing the economy and logistical structure of Star Citizen in line for a more playable form before the full simulation kicks in. So basically the conclusion we came to here.
Yeah.
As for Tony Z, we've not seen the man in some time. His ideas, beliefs, and the simulation he heralded will continue to influence and drive the game forward, and I'm excited to see it implemented. I did get to talk to a member of the economy team at CitizenCon, and everything that I heard sounded exactly like what we've wanted. A dynamic web of economic nodes feeding into a macro economy that we can see the effects of across the system. It seems that the economy is in the hands of a good team, and at some point, we'll see if Tony is still part of it.
Doesn't matter if he is or if he isn't.
Thank you for watching this video. The 323 economic updates are an expected change to a game that seems to be entering a new phase.
It just matters if it's good. The obsession with developers at this company is so weird. It's so weird.
Of development, headed for beta. With much more coming down the pipe in between now and the release of 4.0, this year continues to look like the year everything changes. If you'd like to keep up with this flurry of change and more quality videos like this, I release a new one every week, along with discussion and gameplay based streams on this channel, podcasts and deep dives into game development on Space Tomato 2, and gameplay on Space Tomato Plays. You can find all those below. And if you'd like even more content, like exclusive monthly videos, including my latest looking at CIG's in-game attempts to combat griefing, live podcast access every week, your referral code under each of our videos here on YouTube, and more, you can become a supporter here or on Patreon to help my family keep doing what we're doing.
I only watch the tomato videos that I'm in, by the way.
Whatever you do decide, I hope you learned something new in this video, and I'll see you in the next.
Not bad, but I think we are very far away. So just because some of the pieces of tech are coming in to make the economy better, what we're not getting is the economy or the things that make sense within it and all that stuff. And I think that stuff's going to take a lot of time, and rightfully so, right? It's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a little bit of balancing. It's going to take a little bit of figuring out. I don't think we see anything without a bit of a robust crafting system, probably without base building. This whole obsession with quantum needs to chill. And what I really think we need to obsess with is what Rich, I guess, talked about on Star Citizen Live this week, is the cohesion of everything. And that could be quantum simulation involved as well. But in reality, it is why am I doing something? Am I going for this XYZ thing because I want to craft something? Am I going for this other thing because it's a mission that provides me a more powerful weapon or ammo or a quantum drive, whatever, right? That's the game economy. And if you really think about it, given the track record, given how hard game development is, whatever you want to say, we're probably a little bit of a ways away from that. And I'm going to absolutely enjoy the moments from now until then and watching it grow. But I don't think it's going to just drop, right? And a lot of these like more positive or game development focused videos tend to make it seem like it's, well, they're working on all those things right now. Okay. And you just posted in the video, they said they were going to do them in 2017 or 317, whenever that was. You know what I mean? It's not hard to go, yeah, it's probably going to take a while, but I think it's going to be incremental, and I think it's going to be fun to watch it grow. Right? And that's where I'm at with it, is we are definitely at step one, which Tomato said, and it's going to be a lot of steps before we have a sensible economy in the game. And it's not just the prices of things that make an economy at all. It's the rewards. It's the crafting recipes. It's the, I don't know, like the amount of fuel a quantum drive uses. All of that stuff is economy, right? So I look forward to all that. I mean, one thing that I think Tomato breezed over was last month's monthly report, which gave a really interesting understanding of, like, I think, to me, I read it as like sensical trade routes. Like, this is a resource extractor that goes to a factory or a refinery that goes to a factory that goes to a distribution center that goes to the cities and stations for people to consume, right? Instead of the sort of nonsensical one that we have with a very limited amount of commodities that we deal with now. So kind of excited to see what happens in the future. Right? And those are the sort of things that, if that comes in, that doesn't mean we have an economy. It means we have a bit of a groundwork to start making it make sense. But we'll see. It was a great video from Tomato. Let me link it. If you guys don't know Tomato, I don't know how, but I think he is the YouTuber for Star Citizen. Certainly development. That's for damn sure. So check him out if you guys haven't yet. He's a great guy. Awesome podcast. Probably the premier Star Citizen podcast as well. And just a great dude. Streams on Twitch, all that stuff. Check him out if you haven't yet. He's literally the man.